You're listening to the PT Profit Podcast, episode number 421. Today, I'm sitting down with Coach Viv Hudson, and we are discussing the importance of nervous system training for high-performing clients. What's up, Coach? Thank you so much for joining me in another episode of the PT Profit Podcast. I'm your host, Beverly Simpson. And if this is the first time that you're hanging out with me today, welcome. I'm super pumped that you're here. I'm really excited to introduce one of my former clients, Viv Hudson. She is an accelerator client. Viv is a former pharmacist who turned into coach, and really in this episode shares how she found the press pause method, how the power of pause and really regulating the nervous system transformed her life from the inside out, and how she helps others do the same. As a former accelerator client, she also shares her journey, her big ahas, her takeaways. And if you're curious about how this process could work for you, then by all means, all of that information is in the show notes on how best to connect with me depending on your unique circumstances. So without further ado, let's go ahead and roll that interview.
This is placeholder media that you'll see if you add a layout to an empty scene. You can go ahead and delete it.
What's up, Viv? Thank you so much for joining me on today's show. How are you?
I am pretty good. Just went car shopping with my son last night. He just bought himself his first car.
That's amazing. How's he feeling?
He's pretty excited. So the month before, my daughter, 23, bought her first house.
Oh my gosh.
So my kids are growing up.
I know.
He is. But yeah.
It's happening so fast. Yeah. My kids are so little, and I'm like, oh, but it feels like they're going to be 23.
They are, I'm telling you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay, so for those of you who are tuning in for the first time and have never been introduced to your work, can you share with us a little bit about who you are, who you serve, and how you got there?
Okay, it's a bit of a long story, so...
Listen, we're here for it all. Let's go. Tell us all about it.
Okay.
Your story is powerful, and I want you to share it.
So let me start with how I got here. I was actually a pharmacist for many years. So I'm from Australia. I live in the US now. I've been here for 12 years, going on 12 years now, which is crazy, almost to the day. And anyway, so I worked as a pharmacist for many years, and I got to my 40s, and I'm like, I had owned 2 pharmacies by this point. So I had gotten into the space of hiring people and seeing like some people who come to work and they want to do over and above, and other people kind of drag their knuckles, call in sick, those sorts of things. But also I saw the health aspect of people coming into the pharmacy, so many different chronic conditions, and there was people who were literally younger than I am now who were already on like a handful of medications. And I'm thinking, like, what's going on? Like, why do these people need all this stuff? And I will say I'm blessed with good genetics, but also what I've learned through all the years of being in healthcare is there's so much that we can do that will drive our health and our well-being in a way that gives us a long and healthy and happy life. So I kind of like on my journey, so I got to this point, I'm like, well, I want to help people, but I'm done with kind of just giving them blood pressure tablets and say, have a great day. So anyway, I started to question, what else could I do? So I was still in Australia at this point, and knowing at some point I would move to the US, and I didn't know that I wanted to come and be in healthcare in the US, because my view of healthcare, I'd been over here and I'd seen the CVS with the little pharmacist stuffed in the dark corner in the back. On the phone to insurance companies, and basically handing people like a stapled bag with the receipt on it and going, here's your medication. And like in Australia, we have conversations with patients. We say, make sure that you have this medication with something to eat, and these are maybe a couple of common side effects to look out for, and actually talk to people. So I didn't want to be that person in the back corner. So I knew that I wanted to help people, but I always had this dream, or desire to want to help people in a way that really made a change and the difference in their life. Like, just not here, I'll pay for your college education, but something that lit up inside them that really helped them to see life differently. So anyway, I came across coaching. So I trained and became a coach. And that was really great in just being able to, one, have the most amazing conversations with people, but also what it did for myself. Because I'll always say, like, the best thing I did with my life is have my kids. I mean, I already bragged on them. The second thing was to become a coach because it really helped me to look in the mirror at my own life, how I was showing up and the different stories that we tell ourselves. So anyway, got to the US. I actually did some medical sales for a little while, and I worked with autonomic nervous system testing equipment. This was like selling equipment to doctors' offices. And I tell you, if you want to get a thick skin, go into medical sales.
Oh, really? Why? What happens? What is that like?
Because like there's gatekeepers, right? The gatekeepers at the doctor's office, like, no, the doctor doesn't want to see you. You have to buy us all lunch. I mean, I'm a 1099 contractor. I'm selling stuff that's going to help your practice not only make a difference in the lives of your patients, but also make your practice like a buttload of money. And anyway, so it was a pretty tough gig, and I did fairly well in it. Then I got headhunted by another company. So when I got headhunted by this other company, my previous company slapped a non-compete on me. So, like, I come from Australia, like, we don't sue everybody, like, so I'm like, oh no, what do I do now? So I actually started to do a lot of training and sales support for this company, but also I became the autonomic nervous system testing person. So, anyway, life kind of moved on. I was still in a 1099, and then I got this opportunity to move into the leadership and coaching and training space. So that's kind of where I started. Mike and the road started to take a different detour, and um, I, so over the last few years, I ended up doing a lot of leadership training because when I have free time, what do? I read all these personal development books, how to be a better leader, all of this kind of stuff. So this has just been this maelstrom of information that's swimming around in my head. And anytime you talk to me, I've usually got like a handful of book references. Oh, you need to read this book. Oh, you need to read that book. So anyway, I really wanted to step into more of my coaching greatness. And over the last few years, it's been one of the most empowering things, not just for myself, but for my clients that I've been able to serve by being able to have conversations with them that has really helped them to have aha moments that really shape the course of their life. Because something that I like to talk about is that we are a product of the stories that we tell ourselves. And whenever we look at behavior change, that we have to change that story, that belief that we have that has founded that. And I know one of my big core beliefs was like, I'm not good enough. And Beverly, you've seen this. I know it.
Yeah, right? I mean, listen, even coaches need coaches, right? That's why I just think it's so powerful. Nobody's exempt, but
yeah.
Okay, keep going.
Yeah, so anyway, even knowing that, like, it can still hold you back, but having that awareness, like, we create this belief. It doesn't mean that that belief goes away. It's all about building that awareness and then building a stronger muscle. So that's something I always talk about with my clients is you have to do the reps. Like when a story comes up, how do you reshape it? So anyway, I knew that I had all this knowledge in healthcare. I had done this work with autonomic nervous system testing equipment. So your autonomic nervous system is driven by stress. Let's call it stress, right? So I always talk about the accelerator and the brake. The accelerator is the sympathetic nervous system. that breakers the parasympathetic nervous system and all of the things that we can do to help manage nervous system to better regulate it. Now, how this all starts to come full circle is that when you have a better understanding of stress, we have less disease. So what I learned was that 90, and that's 90% of disease is attributed to stress. So if we're stressed, we catch colds more often. Heart disease is a big one. Cancers, autoimmune diseases, like you can just see so many people showing up with autoimmune diseases they get into their 40s. And then even diabetes. So it's interesting, some of my clients, while they might be married and their partner is significantly more overweight, and they're the ones with diabetes because they're the ones dealing with stress. So one of the things, if you look at the biochemical response of stress, like what happens, blood sugar gets pumped into our bloodstream, cholesterol levels rise because we need those molecules to create the cortisol and the adrenaline. And all of those things create a pharmacy of chemicals inside us that contribute to disease. So I have this big mishmash of leadership, well-being, and stress management that really sum up the topics that I coach around. And yeah, it's been a long journey, a lot of self-discovery, a lot of moving parts. But I know this, but I also know this, and how do I bring it all together?
Yeah, so true. And you've done an amazing job.
Thank you. Yeah. So anyway, that's the long story of how I got here today.
It's interesting. I meant to tell you, I don't know if I told you this, but there was, when my husband cut off, like he was in the mandolin and he cut off a tip of his finger, right? Tell you this? I did tell you because I went to the pharmacist, the CVS, and I asked to speak to the pharmacist, which by the way, like it was an effort. Like he's in the back of the corner. Like I had to really hey, I need to ask you this question. And he was the one that was like, no, because I said, hey, my husband cut his finger. Which one should I get? And he was like, none of this. Go to the ER right now. I was like, oh, okay. I actually went back the next day to tell him that my husband went to the ER, and it was like, thank you. And he's like, hey, thanks so much for telling me. No,
yeah,
I was thinking about you.
Yeah. And that's great because like often in pharmacy, like you would make these recommendations and stuff and you never know what happened.
Yes.
And once in a while that person would come back and say, hey, that cream or that thing that you recommended the other day, that worked wonders. And you're like, yes, now what did I recommend? Because you can't really actually remember who that person was, particularly if it's been a week or two. But anyway, yeah, so you just made that pharmacist day.
Yeah, I hope so, because listen, like I would have not gone.
Yeah.
But he was the one that was like, hey, you gotta go. And I was like, okay. Little did he know that was the start of the Simpsons ER tour of 2025. It's been a year. Anyway, okay, so now you're coaching leaders, and what you do is really powerful and really amazing. So what I'd love to hear is what are some of the biggest ahas that you have learned along the way when it comes to coaching others as well as getting coached yourself?
Right. So much of my coaching journey has helped me through the self-reflection of pulling apart the emotions in my own life, and this is a big topic I'm actually taking a deep dive in at the moment, is emotions. Because when we have those strong emotions, there's usually a story behind that. And through coaching, like when I first started to train as a coach, you got coaching yourself, and one of the words I used to use a lot was guilty. I feel guilty for doing that. You might notice this yourself if you find yourself apologizing a lot. Like, sorry, even when it's not your fault, right? So that was a big aha moment for me, because through the process of coaching, I didn't actually consciously decide I'm not going to say sorry anymore. It was just kind of something that happens through the process until my coach reflected back to me and she said, I notice you not using that word anymore. So one of the things that I'll say to listeners who, particularly if you work, right, and you're a parent, which and more so if you work away from the home as well. Like it's great, like what you do and what I do now, it empowers us to stay at home and be around our family a lot more. But there's often a lot of guilt that comes attached to that. So when I owned my own pharmacy, right, when I was at work, where did I think I should be? At home with the kids. Like I should be being a mom, I should be being a parent, and I should be playing with my kids and all of that kind of stuff. And then when I was at home with the kids, where did I think I should be?
At work.
Be at work. Like, you know, I should be managing my business. So it didn't matter where I was, it was never in the right spot. So a big thing that I learned was just to be present, noticing that conversation and saying it's okay to be where I'm at right now. So that was a huge shift for me. That really helps me to find a lot more peace. So when I work with leaders and talking about that stress piece, like that stress also comes from that guilt and never being in the right place. And we create these expectations, whether they're real or whether they're imagined, and whether they're self-imposed or externally imposed. So that's one of the things that we need to be aware of, is where that's coming from and who needs to say yes. And you say all the time, it's about saying yes to yourself, right?
Yes. So
For me, that was a big thing, was being able to learn to say yes to myself. And I mean, that's such a strong mantra that I think anybody can use, and getting clarity on what that yes looks like. Because the other thing is, like, we get so used to saying yes to everybody else, we become diluted. A lot of the people that I work with now, they suffer from people pleasing, right? Even like your high achievers, your leaders, business owners, CEOs, like they will suffer from people pleasing, because how they get to where they are in success, right, is by doing. Like there's that saying, when you're good at your job, you get to do everybody else's as well. So you do that enough, right, you're going to work your way up the tree. So there's benefits in that. And when I help you, I feel good about myself, right? It's a way that we can feed our own self-worth. But what ends up happening is we lose ourselves. We lose ourselves in that validation from helping everybody else, that we lose sight of what it is that we wanted to achieve in the first place. So when I work with leaders, that's one of the areas of stress and pressure that can impact them, is that people pleasing. The next thing is perfectionism. So when people try to do things to the nth degree, like I've just got to revise this one more time, like, you know, with our funnels, right? With our blog posts, with our content, with like whatever project you're working on, like it creates its own form of procrastination, but it can also be a form of self-sabotage that speaks to some of those stories that we tell ourselves, like, I'm not good enough. It all just becomes this melting pot. So perfectionism is another big thing, and overachievement is the third thing. So that's another big area that I like to focus on. So I've been guilty of that myself through the years, and it very much bleeds into the people pleasing, but it's because we validate ourselves and we get self-worth from the work that we do. But what I learned was also how it impacts the relationships around us. So I have this story, it was actually from one of my colleagues, and she loves her work. Like, she will be on a computer answering client emails into the evening. She's in a marriage with a stepson. Anyway, the stepson had brought this fly home and he dropped it in the bin, or in the trash. And she pulled it out of the trash and she said, "Oh, what's this?" And it was some event at his school. And he said, "I knew you wouldn't be able to go. You'd be too busy. So I just threw it out." And that was, for her, was that moment that she needed, because that's the message that we send as overachievers, that our work is more important than the people in our life. So all of these things build up a lot of stress and pressure in people's lives, and that's what I work with leaders to break down, is to get them to get better at saying yes to themselves and to get really clear on what it is that they want and get clear on what success really looks like to them. Because we've been fed this story, working hard, working lots of hours, that's what success is. But we forget that it's actually a journey and not a destination. And that's what we're that's what we're training it as. So I don't remember what the exact question was. I don't know if that answered it all. But
Yeah, no, it was. But something I'm curious, right? Like as a high achiever, as someone who, relates to this, is that hustle gets you far, right? Like people think, oh, I'm not addicted to the hustle because I'm just, successful at my job, because they're celebrated for how hard they're working. Like we are set up, especially in the States. I can't speak to Australia, but I can speak to the States, is that we reward a hustle culture. Like that is, we don't think of it as like, oh, this isn't detrimental. This is just what is required of me and required of my job. So I'm curious, for your clients, how have you helped them see that, like, hey, you're working too hard, just you don't need to work that hard? How are the things that you create buy-in to help demonstrate that, like, hey, you actually are stressed, you just don't realize it?
right. So and that's a great point, because often people don't think that they're stressed. But one of the red flags is that busy brain, right? That busy brain that doesn't know how to stop. Like these days, like even when you're watching TV, like what are you doing? You probably got your phone in your hand, scrolling through, or your laptop or your iPad or whatever, and you're multitasking. So it's like asking people like those questions about how hard is it for you to just quiet those thoughts. So they often feel like they have ADHD because we've gotten to, one, the instant gratification, and two, like how many tabs have you got open on your computer right now? So just thinking,
Well, I only have one, okay? That I had to, but that's just because I'm recording on Descript, and so I know. But like, I had a million, so like,
right. So it's being able to help people to understand, like, where's your attention at? So it's having questions around that. How effectively do you feel like you're using your time? Because we say we're busy, but busy doing what? And I know, like in my own business, I've done a lot of busy work that doesn't necessarily move the needle in terms of getting results. And that's not just isolated to us as coaches, right? This is what happens in the workplace as well. And it's because we're not focusing on the right things, because we've also found work as a way to not have to deal with other areas of our lives. So I have another client, and they work a lot of hours and they're not happy in their marriage. So it's easier to be at work than it is to deal with their relationship issues. So sometimes it's a mask for these things. So it's just starting to dig into, well, what drives you? And if you weren't doing so much, what would you do? And sometimes people are like, well, and it's important for people to develop hobbies and other things that just make them like a well-rounded person. Another thing that's driven my, I want to say, research into this area, and ironically, it's a nurse who wrote out about like the regrets of the dying. She was Australian as well. Her name's Bronnie Ware. And she talks about the regrets of the dying. And I've used this often in when I get called to do public speaking, that and I talk about these things. And people will often say that they wish that they hadn't worked so hard, because when you get to your retirement years, you think like, what was it all for? And so many people, they retire, and like when they've been busy, then suddenly they die within 2 or 3 years. I had like one of my old neighbors, her husband, he retired at 67 or whatever. He'd worked this away job for probably decades, and within 2 or 3 years he had brain cancer and died. So so much for a great retirement. So this is the thing, it's like we forget it's a journey, right? So anyway, working too hard was one. Another one was that they wish that they had been more true to themselves rather than living up to other people's expectations. They wish that they kept their friends near and dear. So these are just some of the things that I coach towards to help people to be able to see that there is this journey. So I created this program, the Power Pause, right? Because we're so busy doing stuff that what we need to do is to learn to pause. So during our day, like there's different things that we need to pay attention to. Because, like, do you want to live a long, healthy, and happy life? Like, I think that's what we all want, right? However, we've gotten caught up in this hustle culture that we forget about the journey. We forget about looking after ourselves. We think we're going to start getting fit tomorrow, but we're in this whole denial that it's not going to happen unless you start today, unless you start something that you can say yes to yourself today, and making those constant commitments where you can build that trust in yourself to help to guide you on that process. So through the power pause, like what I talk about is the neural networks, and this is where my autonomic nervous system stuff comes in. So we have all these neural networks, and these are the superhighways in our bodies that have the habits that we get up and we just go to the coffee machine and turn it on each day, or the way that we get dressed, or that just our morning processes, whatever it might be. The things that we say, the things that we think are pretty much 90% of what we thought and did yesterday. So that is the superhighway of this neural network. So through my program, I call it the power pause, because to be able to do something different, right, you need to pause, right? And this is the pause here, which creates a choice point. So you can take the superhighway that you always have, or you can pause and make a different choice, right? Which will then allow you to, okay, I've been sitting here for too long, I need to get up and move. Or I've reacted and said yes to this thing for too long, and I know that I'm not saying yes to myself, right? The pause can be used in any number of ways to improve our self-care, to get more clear around what we want to assert for ourselves. Um, and it is just like it breaks us out of that reaction. So rather than reacting, we respond to the different situations.
Yeah, so I'm curious, for your clients that work on this, what are some of the results that they see once they start incorporating these pauses?
Mind blown, honestly, like mind blown. Like within, like I put them, like when I start with my clients, I start them into this program. It's a 6-week program. We use an app, so it helps to build like a couple of short structured pauses into their day, and it helps them to increase that awareness of their thinking. So we're a product of the stories that we tell ourselves, and the stories that we tell ourselves are the thoughts that we have that happen 90% of the time, which are usually linked to a strong limiting belief that might be something like, I'm not good enough, or I'm not loved. So what we need to do is to slow down that thinking so people can connect to, is this thought supporting me, or is it not supporting me? So within that first few weeks, I can create that awareness in people to be able to just notice that. And in doing that, that creates that choice point. So when that happens for them and they start to see the impact of the stories that they're telling themselves, it really reshapes how they think about things, how they approach things, and they honestly find a lot more happiness, and it helps a lot of that stress melt away. So if we can reduce stress, we can segment a lot of that chronic disease, or at least delay it starting, because of the way gene expression works. So yeah, that's like mind blowing. Is honestly it's transformational, and I mean I just have have so much privilege in being able to shape people's lives in that way because of the transformations I know that I can make. And I know, like, you've worked in the fitness and wellness space. Until people break that story, until people hit that pause choice point, good luck making any diet or exercise plan work.
It's true. It's true. But I am curious, when you're working with people potentially that maybe they've done some of this autonomic nervous system, maybe they've started to rewire their brain and they're shifting their thoughts. Like, what do you tell the people that feel like, oh my gosh, I had a bad thought and now I'm going to be stressed and all these things are working? Like, how do you get, or going to like, it's not going to work anymore? Or, what about your people who have done this work and they say things like, oh, but Viv, it's taking too long. How do I know if I'm doing it right? Or whatnot. How do you help them continue to break cycles of stress?
Okay, this is going to come straight out of your book. You got to do the reps. So you talk about it like you do one squat, like you're not going to get fit. So you could do this course for a week, right? You're going to get some
Right.
results, but you have to keep working on it. Like, I've known my not good enough story for decades at this point, and I still find myself in that place from time to time. So just because you know it, it doesn't make it go away. It's the strength of that muscle through those continuous brain reps, right? Of saying, okay, that's just a thought. I have a choice. I can believe that, or I can choose to believe something else in this moment. Because everything that we think is a choice, an active choice. And even people will say, like, I don't have a choice. And I always think that that's BS, because I could say, like, if you're driving down the road and you hit a traffic light and it turns red, right? You could say, I've got no choice. I have to stop. Well, that's not true. You could drive through it. It's just you don't like the consequences. So sometimes by helping people just to understand that no choice is still a choice because they don't like the consequences, is very empowering, because it actually helps them to put them back in the driver's seat of their life. So if you find yourself going back to those old limiting beliefs, okay, you're choosing that in this moment, but it doesn't mean that you have to stay there. So, like, sure, and I'm not saying like we gloss over when bad stuff happens, because there's going to be days where, like, we need space to grieve, we need time to feel the feels, right? But it doesn't, it's how long I choose to stay there is what the difference is. So, so many people live in this victim story where you're responsible for my happiness. And that's BS as well. Like, I'm responsible for my happiness, and it's not anything to do with how much money I have, what color my house is painted, how many kids I have, what mood my
Right.
partner's in. I mean, like, we might have like a disagreement, and I could stay peed off with him because I used to be very good at the passive aggressive thing.
Were you?
Right.
Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine that.
I used to be very
It's
good at
fun.
that. But it was through coaching that I realized I wasn't asking for the help that I needed, because I was expecting my partner to be a mind reader. And when I started to ask for help more rather than expecting him to read my mind, like, my life changed, and it wasn't the big deal I thought it would be. So, yeah.
Did he feel like did he notice the changes as well?
He did. And, like, I mean, nowadays, like, it's so funny because he will ask me during the day, like, what time do you want to get dinner started? And he's in the kitchen helping me. And, like, sometimes I'm like, I don't even want you to help. I just want to be on my own. So be careful what you wish for. But I think he's also realized, like, just because he hears me talking and hears me what I say about different people, and a lot of people, like, and I want to say many men feel guilty, and I've seen this because of both of our sets of parents retiring, and then both our mums got dementia, and then the dads have had this whole guilt thing because they realized how much their wives had done through the years as they've started to have to take over the chores. So I think part of his realization was actually hearing me say, oh, the reason that they're doing that is because they feel guilty. And he's like, I don't want to feel guilty, so I'm going to help too. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. That's interesting. I think of it, I reflect on it in my own experience because my husband is actually, he works full time, but he's also very like, I will feel bad because he'll come home after working full time and then get in the kitchen and start cooking. Right. And like, in fact, I'm not even allowed to do the laundry anymore because he's like, you're so bad at it. I just don't want you to do it.
All right. Your kids are just about old enough to take over now anyway, right?
Almost. I'm like counting down the days and I'm like, well, no, I want to help. Right. So like, listen, I get that. Right. I definitely get that. So honestly, your work is incredible and I cannot wait for all of the high achievers and CEOs of the world to actually get your work and get to experience what you do because it's so powerful. It helps at work, it helps in relationships, and it also helps with your health and wellness. It's amazing. So it's been incredible to watch you grow and I've loved having you be an accelerator client. It's been amazing. So I'm curious, would you share some of your favorite parts, like some of the reasons that brought you to Accelerator and what your experience has been?
Yeah. So what I loved about you, Beverly, was this whole no pressure sales approach. And I still remember our sales conversation. You just sat there in silence because you knew you had what I needed, right?
Right.
And you
Yes.
basically just made me sit in that discomfort, right? So I could say yes to myself, right? So that was part of it. I think like the volume of content that you have, holy guacamole. Like when I opened up your library, I'm like, when does this woman sleep? And like you keep reinventing it to make it better. And I love like you have the videos. My biggest wish would be for shorter videos because I'm always the funny thing, I got so used to listening to your videos at 1.5 or 1.75. So it made you sound like, and you are high energy, but it made you sound super high energy. So then when I'd hear you talk in real life,
I'm laughing so hard because listen, I'm the same way. I'm like my mentors. I'm like, hey, can you like just speak a little bit faster?
so yeah. And so you have like this huge library of videos, but it's the PDFs that go with it that I can download that. I can fill in the blanks and it just helps me to consolidate my thoughts. But yeah, the volume of content that you have is worth like a lot of money in itself, even before you start engaging with you as a person. The other thing inside the accelerator is like you're always getting one-on-one coaching with you. It's like we've got 6 people on the call and everybody gets 10 minutes each. Now, if I need half an hour, you're going to give me half an hour and you're going to give the next person 20 minutes and the next person half an hour. And these calls might go a lot longer than an hour because you give people what they need. So I think that that's really powerful. And also just that access to the community to be able to, hey, here's some assets I've got ready, and those weekly check-ins to be able to say, here's my content, and the way you go through it sends the Loom video to go, okay, this looks great. I would tweak this. Like that's just super helpful. And honestly, sometimes I don't know how you do it. I definitely think that you have to be an overachiever because I don't know how you give everybody the attention that you give them and still show up for your family every day because you give a lot. You give a lot, like incredibly. So, yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's funny because it's 10 years of experience that goes into that program, right? It's like, oh, I learned something new in the program. Let's give it to the accelerator. So it's always like a combination, at least for me and in my mind, what goes through my mind is like, how do I make sure that they have everything and all the choices that they can have? Because all paths work. Sometimes decisions are the hard part, right? So how do I make sure that I give them the choice and then hold them accountable to the decision that they make and not throw the baby out with the bathwater?
Yeah.
Because that can sometimes be challenging. And, I run the risk of overwhelming, but, c'est la vie. That's why there's coaching, right? Because it's like, hey, here's all your choices, make the decision and I'll hold you accountable to it. But the decision is not for me to make.
Yeah. I think the other powerful thing that I have learned from you is you have a proven process that works, right? Because it's worked for you and it's worked for other people. And it's like what we've already said, you got to do the reps.
Who knew that you'd be working out on the podcast?
I just often use that as an analogy, like when I'm having my sales calls and stuff, because it is all about doing the reps. Like the time that we're the worst at anything is the first time we do it. And every time we do it, we improve. And we have to remember that as coaches and building our funnels and all the stuff that you teach is like the first round is okay, it's a start. But that's not where it ends, right? We iterate it every time. And as we speak, I'm iterating my funnel yet again.
But you're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
I'm not starting from scratch. I've got the template, I've got the majority of the content, and now it's just tweaking it. And the more you go down this path, like you've seen my messaging dial in, my avatar dial in, because you start and we learn by doing. And that's the thing, right? The perfectionist in you could stand back and go, okay, it's still not quite right, so I'll just redo it all again. No, we learn by doing what worked, what didn't work, and let's iterate it from there rather than just standing there in overwhelm procrastination mode. And the funnels can be a lot. It's just like every time I have to redo one of the long pages, I'm like, oh, I need a content guru.
It's so true. I know, my gosh. Okay, so this has been amazing, and I definitely want to be mindful of your time. So thank you so much for hanging out with me today, pouring into my community. So for those of you who want to connect, where are some of the best places that I should send them?
Okay, so I'm very active on LinkedIn these days. So Vivian Hudson, that's Vivian, Vivien Hudson on LinkedIn. So I'm a leadership and resilience coach. So look for me on there. So I do a lot of posting through LinkedIn, so you can always see what I'm talking about in the moment and all the different topics I talk about. I've got my website, which is brainbodyandbusiness.com. It's a bit of a mouthful, but it kind of speaks to the holistic sense of everything I do, from leadership to well-being to corporate training. So there's that. And then you can also find me on Facebook as well if you want to get a little bit more of a peek into my personal life and what I'm up to there. So so through the places that you can find me on a pretty regular basis. So thanks so much for having me. You are amazing. And if you're thinking about getting into Accelerator, you should do it, because honestly, I have never seen so much content and support from a coaching program, and I'm going to tell you, I've spent a few bucks on a few.
Yeah, totally. Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay.
Thank
Talk
you.
To you. Bye.